Two common cards that have been causing one of the biggest controversial stinks amongst the competitive community. Make sure you guys smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome. We're starting off over here with Ken the Warrior Dragon. It's going to be a level 3 light warrior monster. That's right. A level 3 white warrior monster with 1,300 attack points and 1,550 defense. Okay, well that's nothing too crazy. I mean, warrior support. Once per turn, at the end of the battle phase, return this card from the field to the hand. You can only use each of the following effects of Ken the Warrior Dragon once per turn. So during the main phase, you can special summon one Gend the Diamond Tiger from your hand or deck to your opponent's field in defense position. And then if this card is special summoned by the effect of Gend the Diamond Tiger, your opponent draws 2 cards and discards 1 card. Wait a minute, so you're telling me that we have a card that gives us the ability to special summon something out of the deck to the opponent's field. Okay, well that's interesting. And then when this thing itself is special summoned by the effect of the other guy, your opponent, which now that card's on your opponent's field, would be you triggering. Okay, well let's go talk about Gen here. Gen the Diamond Tiger. Oh, look, it's another level 3 light warrior monster. Okay, I don't see anything too crazy about that. 800 attack points with 2,000 defense. Okay, we're not too crazy here. Once per turn, at the end of the battle phase, return this card from the field to the hand. Okay, so this will bounce back to the hand, sure. You can only use each of the following effects of Gen the Diamond Tiger once per turn. So during your main phase, you can special summon one Ken the Warrior Dragon from your hand or deck to your opponent's field in defense position. And this card is special summoned by the effect of Ken the Warrior Dragon. Discard a card. Hold on here. So we have 2 cards that interact with each other that beam their friend over to the opponent's field and then trigger an effect that comes back and affects you. Now, why do we now care about giving our opponent monsters? Because one of the biggest mentalities in the game has been, you don't want to leave a monster on your opponent's field. No, that's really bad. They'll be able to link summon with it, exceed summon with it. They'll be able to use it as a utility option. That's bad. Well, I hate to tell you this, but there are a couple little interactions that you can do with these two. The first one that comes to mind is Dark World. And both of these cards both specifically read, if you special summon this, the opponent's field, you hand that effect back on over to me. Oh, look, I special summoned. Okay, cool. Now the effect is triggering on me. I get to discard some sort of card. Well, I mean, your opponent gets to draw 2 cards and then discard a card. I like that effect a lot more than the opponent discards a card. But you know what? That's 2 discard outlets. That is more copies of Ceruli that I can actually take advantage of. Okay, well that tells an entirely different story here, because are these just Dark World power-ups in disguise? What's going on here? Well, besides, additional copies of Ceruli, and now every, stinking Dark World monster in the entire sun now actually having more discard outlets for this, you're going to have to find a way to get these onto the field. Now, let's call it what it is. I mean, sometimes Dark World cares about its normal summon, sometimes Dark World doesn't care about its normal summon. And these are also warrior monsters. So, take a moment here to think about that. Alright, so these are generic power-ups, if I were to consider these. Additional copies of Ceruli. They themselves don't really do anything besides, go, hey, this will bounce back to your hand. So if your opponent, obviously gets it to the battle phase, or you get it to the battle phase to spend something back, that's fine. But that's not... Okay, Dark World's like the free plus. The thing that's got everybody up in arms right now about this is the talents and thrust interactions. Now, for those of you that have not played competitively, most of the time, thrust and talents turn 1 sometimes don't get the craziest value that they can. And you're like, wait a minute here. You're putting a monster on the opponent's field turn 0. Or technically your turn 1, if you're going first. That means that now that you've triggered the effect for a discard outlet or a potential draw to discard 1, Now that your opponent has applied the effect, yes, this is how this works, Thrust and Talents are now live. And Thrust and Talents are by far some of the craziest, most powerful cards in modern era Yu-Gi-Oh! I have been on the train to putting both of these cards to 1. Alright? What Konami designed here was outlets to force us to turn Talents and Thrust into going first cards. I'm not saying that they weren't already cards that were going first, but these are now guaranteed effect resolutions, because now all suddenly your opponent has a monster on the field for Thrust. Well, that's crazy. Okay, so now I'm getting the full benefits of Thrust. We are going to maximum town for whatever searchable asset that I need. Talents, you are looking at your opponent's hand. You're suddenly getting this hand advantage. You are taking away any starter, any counterplay that your opponent might have because of these 2 cards. Now, once again, well, Robbie, these are unsearchable. Rhoda, all right, cool. We fixed it. All right, you're playing 7 copies of these now if you're going down that path. Thrust and Talents might not be exactly, the most searchable cards in the world, but you now have interaction points to further force these on the opponent. Like, these are actually, from what I'm seeing from a lot of the competitive community, a lot of people are losing their minds over these 2 cards, strictly because they are free resource, shifting and putting cards on the opponent's field. Now, I do want to say one other thing here before we get too far into this. Yes, putting a monster on the opponent's field also prevents them from evenly matching you. I mean, it doesn't stop them from switching the monster to attack mode and ramming it into you, but these also don't have any devastating conditions like Nightmare, Corrupt, or Ibly that say you cannot perform X action while it's on the field. Now, I mean, these would have been cool with Kashtira cards sitting around because, suddenly, guess what? You can't special summon out these big cards, no Fenrir, none of that stuff. And they're also level 3, so they don't really check the best card boxes for interactions, at least in terms of the little crazy things that you could be doing. So that's okay. So back to the basic question here at the end of this. What is going to be able to take the most advantage of these cards? Because these feel like cards that maybe if we had more of a hodgepodge kind of generic-esque deck working and floating around right now, or maybe better warrior interactions for level 3, maybe these could see more potential play. They definitely feel like more utility aspect cards, which is fine. Don't get me wrong. I mean, cards that can trigger off broken, devastating effects is fantastic. And I'm sure the competitive community, having looked at these cards and strictly just said, these interact with 2 of the most broken modern era cards in the game's history, I'm sure people are going to look at these and find some way to do it. Now, I don't have any idea where to begin with these cards. I mainly, I love on this channel just analyzing and looking at how data perceives itself and looking at results. And if the competitive community is coming out here and going, hey, these cards are busted, their Talents and Thrust turn these into something, I look forward to genuinely seeing how these players are going to bust these cards wide open. YCS Indy is going to be here in just end of the month, well, mid-end of the month here. And it's going to be the first time that players are going to get the chance to explore Ken and Gen here. And I'm honestly excited to see if people will be able to take full advantage of the Talents and Thrust interactions with these 2 cards. I genuinely want to see how these players are going to make an attempt to break these cards open, and just what other cool ideas that we'll be able to see. It'd be cool if we could see more of an archetype with Gen and Ken, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I feel like these are just 2 off-shooted cards that just happened to line up with the putting monsters on the opponent's field and more of these slightly more devastating, crazy effects that we've been seeing out here. So, yeah, these 2 cards, competitive community is very, very, very excited about, or rather just scared of. I feel like that's more the case. But please, leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here in the day, guys. Peace. patrons. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.